Adonai roi lo echsa. Minotesha yarbit seni alme menuchot yanachaleni. Nahashi shovei. Yanacheni v'maglet tzedek l'ma'an shemo. Gam ki helech begitz al mavet. Lo yirara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'nishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzurirai. Tishanta v'shamen roshi kosiri v'yah. Ach tov v'chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai. Mishaveti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. And when we are finding ourselves in need of strength and comfort, we often turn to the psalmist. And so now I invite you, if you wish, to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. And in the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we remember Frances Kleinman. To her children, to Gary and Bob, and also to Polly and Mary Pat. To her sister, Adlin, and to her grandchildren, Sarah, Kim, Brad, Kelly, and Katie, and also to Jeff, Brian, and Laura, and to her very sweet great-grandchildren, to Lindsay, Kate, Colin, Jack, Brooke, Courtney, Charlie, and Will. To all the members of the family who were able to gather here in person, to those who are viewing virtually, we're here today to remember, but also to cherish and celebrate the life of your beloved Fran. Our sages, in their wisdom, have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. A journey from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Fran was born on March 20th, 1924, to Jacob and Sarah Hecht. Her journey of 97 years began here in Cleveland. Fran, along with her younger sister Adeline, who now resides in Florida, and her older brother Manny, of blessed memory, grew up on Glencairn Road in Shaker Heights during some of the most difficult and challenging years in our nation's history. Their mother was a dedicated homemaker, and their father Jacob was an entrepreneur of sorts, as he was involved in a variety of businesses, and this included the construction business and a beer company that they owned known as Tip Top Beer, as well as a nightclub they owned called Cedar Gardens. Fortunately for Fran, Manny, and Adeline, the Hecht family fared well during these troubling times. When Fran was just 10 years old, she endured a frightening bout with pneumonia that left her bedridden for 6 weeks. It seems the doctor would stop by every couple of weeks and inform her that she needed to stay in bed another week or two. And she missed a great deal of school, but once recovered, she was able to move forward as a happy and productive student. I had the privilege yesterday, a sad privilege, to be on the phone with her sister, Adeline. And while Adeline is not able to join us in person today, the words and the sentiments that she shared went straight to my heart. Adeline recalled a sister who was, and she said this, I quote her, "a special lady and a wonderful sister, the very best." Adeline also reminisced that she couldn't think of anyone who had a sister like Fran. She shared that their mother, Sarah, died when Adeline herself was pregnant, 9 months pregnant, and she described how Fran rose up and stepped in to help her sister with everything. Adeline said, "She was like a mother, a sister, and my best friend." She told me that her sister Fran always had an open home and an open heart, and while saddened by the loss of her sister, Adeline said that Fran is now reunited with her beloved Leonard. She spoke of her sister and brother-in-law as a very, very special couple. Fran was a product of the Shaker school system, and following her graduation from Shaker Heights High School, she matriculated to The Ohio State University. Many years ago, back in 2009, friends, I had the privilege of meeting her. It was another sad occasion on the passing of her beloved Leonard. But she gave me information, and I copied this information and highlighted her exact words that I want to share with you. I had asked Fran how she met Leonard, and this is what she shared and the information that I gleaned. When Fran Hecht was a freshman at The Ohio State University, Leonard Kleinman was a senior. They met through a mutual friend, and Fran remembered that very first introduction to Leonard as she put it, love at first sight. She said he was so handsome, and she was quite taken by that gray streak he had in his hair. She said that she was captivated from the very first date. It was a dinner date, and Fran told me that she suspected that Leonard had little or no money. So Fran told me that when they went out to dinner that first time, she said she wasn't that hungry. She didn't want him to spend too much that night. They had a beautiful courtship that continued, and the two of them were married in Cleveland on December 19th, 1943 at the Temple on the Heights, with Rabbi Rosenthal officiating. At the time that I spoke to Fran back in 2009, they were just days away from having celebrated their 66th wedding anniversary. Fran expressed to me that in those 66 years, they shared a tremendous friendship, a great love for each other. There was a devotion and a dedication and I mentioned at Leonard's ceremony of remembrance that as a couple they were, as we say in Hebrew in the Jewish wedding ceremony, re'im ahuvim. They were loving partners. And when Leonard finished medical school, he and Fran drove cross country to California, where he did his internship at Los Angeles County General Hospital. And simultaneously, Leonard was serving our country in the Army Medical Corps. After his work was completed at LA County General, he was full-time in the service. And through all of this, his medical training, his service to our country, it was Fran who was by his side, supporting him all the way. When Fran and Dr. Kleinman returned home to Cleveland, he began to build his medical practice. And they began to build their family. Gary and Bob, you entered into their world. And your mom was the ultimate mother, the ultimate homemaker, and quite the balabust. If you don't know the word balabust, it just means homemaker plus everything. Everything that it took to run the home, raise the family, and keep everyone in line. She did this so well. And while your dad juggled time between family and career, your mom was the constant. As you boys grew, so did your dad's practice. And at the very young age of 34, your father suffered and thank God survived his first heart attack. This scare changed things for your mom. We can only imagine. I mean, as a child, 34 sounds like a very old age. And to many of us here right now, we know it's young or we know it's very tangible. At 34 years old, her husband has a heart attack. And she knew that she would begin her new career, side by side with her beloved as his office manager. Not only did this provide a way for your mom to keep a watchful eye on your father, but she also was pretty amazing at this job. She ran his office very successfully. Mom was a great businesswoman and negotiator, and her time there as office manager really showed how very sharp, intelligent, and organized she was. Her mind was laser focused, and she knew how to get the job done. Leonard's family practice turned out to really be a family practice, with Leonard and Fran, and then Gary, you joining the practice. And Bob, you shouldn't feel left out, because you know your mom would always love to say the following: I have 2 sons, one's a doctor, and the other one's successful. While Mom loved to sew and be crafty in a variety of household projects, including painting the living room drapes, antiquing the railing, she'd also seek out and buy secondhand furniture and then refurbish it in order to keep continuing the beautification of your home, which she was so very proud of. Her home was important to her, however, Mom's highest priority, as everyone here knows, was family. Now, we all know that mother-daughter relationships are unique and wonderful, and sometimes they can be a little complicated. All the more so that the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship has the potential to also be quite complicated. How especially moving for me to listen the other day to the words of her 2 daughters-in-law, how they praised the qualities and attributes of a beloved mother-in-law. Mary Pat, you described her as the quintessential homemaker, or a balabust. You said she was a fabulous cook and kept a spotless home. And while Fran enjoyed an occasional game of mahjong or bowling, you said that she much preferred taking care of the family. This is what she did best. She put great effort into keeping your family together. Mary Pat, when you moved here from St. Louis to Cleveland, you didn't know a soul here, but the 2 of you got to know each other very well. She took great care of you and made sure to introduce you to people. She showed you around the city. And as the years went by, you and Fran grew even closer. Mary Pat, you said you saw this as a true blessing. And Polly, you recalled meeting Fran in 1972. 1 year later, you and Gary married. And I'm guessing that Fran had a big part in that marriage happening. As the story goes, when Gary was doing his internship in Missouri, Fran called her son one day, and she said to Gary, "Are you going to marry that girl?" Or, wait, how did she say? "Are you or are you not going to marry that girl?" Basically, let's do this already.
Those were the words.
Polly, you felt from that minute that you and Fran when you moved back to Cleveland, Polly, similar to Mary Pat's experience, she took you under her wing. She showed you all of Cleveland, made sure to introduce you to her friends, adult children, and these friends that you met back then, they've remained close to you throughout the years. You said you adored her. And Fran, you described as a woman who was always fair and caring and giving. Her boys, these are really good boys. Such dedication. Bob, you described her as the matriarch. You said your mom was also the parent who had to be the disciplinarian. And if you or your brother misbehaved, she would chase you around the kitchen with a dish towel. And I told you, you're lucky it wasn't a wooden spoon. You and your brother also knew a mom and a dad who had enormous hearts for those in need. Bob, both you and your brother shared stories of parents who assisted loved ones. There was Aunt Beatrice, who was widowed very young, and she had a son. They were left alone, and they were left with very little money. Your boys knew many times when Mom would go over there, when they knew Aunt Beatrice was working at May Company, and they'd leave cash in the mailbox. And they did this anonymously. Aunt Beatrice never knew who it was from. And there was also your father's sister-in-law. Leonard's brother Bill died, leaving a wife and 3 children, and your mom and dad helped care for them financially as well. And Gary, you knew that for your mother, it was always about family. It was the most important part of her life. Oftentimes your dad worked late, sometimes not getting home until 7 p.m., but it was important to Mom that the whole family sat down together. Sometimes she'd have to give you and your brother a little sandwich on the side to hold you over to dinner time. But this was so important to her because yours was a very close-knit family. And like Bob, Gary, you have memories of her not allowing you boys to do certain things in the house, like you were not allowed to walk on that freshly raked shag carpeting. Now you have some children and get grandchildren here who probably don't know what we're talking about, but shag carpeting was really cool in the 70s, I think. And they used to have a rake to keep it looking like nobody stepped on it. If you were messy or dirty, maybe coming in from outside when you were out there playing, she might look at you and call you Ishkabibble. And you remember the way that she would know if you touched one of the pages in that giant Webster's dictionary. It was on a particular page, and you would sit down for dinner certain nights, and she would say, okay, what word were you looking up? She knew if you messed with the book. And you said in the best possible way, she was a little OCD, but this was just her way. Bob and Gary, and of course Mary Pat and Polly all agreed how Fran just adored her grandchildren. We're going to hear from some of them in a moment. But whether it was all of the in-town time spent together, the trips to New York, or the visits down to Nani and Papa's place in Boca, she just loved being a grandmother. And when the family continued to grow with the arrivals of great-grandchildren, Nana was ecstatic and overjoyed. Gary and Bob, I have to mention something that I think everyone here already knows, but I have to say it. You boys, to say you were dedicated to her, such an understatement. The 6 or 7 years that she lived at the Atrium in Aurora, the two of you made sure to have lunch with her every day. And by every day, I mean every single day. The staff either admired you or thought you were crazy. How could this possibly be? For all those years, and sometimes even going back to have dinner with her. But these lunch dates, for a mother to sit there with her 2 sons, she must have felt so much. Her heart must have been just bursting. You're really an example to all of us. This is a beautiful thing. The week before she died, you were there visiting with her. She was weak. She appeared to be sleeping most of the time, but Bob, perhaps to offer a lighthearted moment, you leaned in and you said to your mother, "Do you want some corned beef?" Nothing. Silence. A full minute goes by. And then without opening her eyes, she said, "Corned beef. That sounds good." I won't tell them the part about how you bought the corned beef and tried to feed it to her, and we know that that wasn't working. But she heard you. She heard you. We know your mom dedicated time to the Mount Sinai Hospital Women's Auxiliary for many years, but really all of her time, her energy, her devotion, and dedication focused on her beloved Leonard, her husband of nearly 66 years, and also her sons and her daughters-in-law, and her siblings, and her beautiful grandchildren and great-grandchildren. This woman's legacy will certainly live on. And so today, with sad but grateful hearts, we join with the sages of our people as we declare Zichrona Livracha. May the memory of Fran Hecht Kleinman and the good deeds that she performed here in the land of the living, may these always be remembered as a blessing. Amen.
Amen.
We know that words that come from the heart often enter to the heart. Three of her grandchildren have some words they want to share. And first I'd like to call on her granddaughter, Sarah.
So I was very lucky that on our way home from taking Lindsay to school, we got the call that Nana Nana was nearing possibly the end, and so we were able to stop and see her. And although it was difficult, I'm so thankful for that time. I know I was supposed to think of a memory in a couple sentences to share, but there's too many. So what I really want to say is that I will never forget the way she made me feel. So special and so loved. And I hope, and I think she knew that we all treasured her that much as well. And I'm thankful that I got to tell her that and hold her hand and kiss her face. All the words you said today are so true, and the legacy of her strong family will live on. And I think you could say that family is the most important thing to everyone under this tent, all modeled by Nani and Papa. What they had was so special. But she was a really special lady, and I love her beyond words, as we all do. And I'm just so thankful. I feel so lucky to have her as my grandma.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to now call on Kim.
It's okay. I have so many wonderful and funny memories of Nani, and here are a few. When I was little and slept over, when I could make it through the night, she would put my hair in a pony with a newspaper rubber band, and that would really hurt. We would never be able to get them out. But we read highlights magazines, played Rummy Cube, we'd color and play on the light bright. And when I was in college, all of my friends went to Mexico for their spring break, but I decided to spend the week in Boca with Nani and Papa, and that was the best decision. I loved my week with them, going to the flea market to buy nail polish, the beach, and their favorite restaurant to get chicken pot pie. Before I got married, Nani always said, a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. She realized I could not cook, and at that point she told me what to buy Brian at the Boston market. I also want to mention something that we have in common. Nani always loved getting her hair done, and I did not really understand that until now. I love going to get my hair blown out, and I'm just like you, Nani. So, but Nani, I love you, and I miss you, and I know how much you miss Papa. So I'm happy that you are together now.
Great, sweetheart. Very nice, darling.
Thank you, Kim. And Kelly is going to come up here.
We all know I get a little emotional sometimes.
Well,
Okay, great. A few years ago, the show Marvelous Mrs. Maisel first aired. It's a show about a Jewish family that takes place in the 1950s. While in cities across the country, Brad, Katie, and I watched the series and texted over the parallels to Nani's life. Among other things, the show focuses on the character's perfect domestic life, something we've talked in abundance about. Her and her husband pushing together 2 twin beds to sleep at night. We all remember sleeping in the crack in between Nani and Papa's bed. Waking up hours before her husband to put on her makeup and do her hair, and making brisket. These are all things that will always remind us of our grandmother. She was an amazing cook, but never freely gave away her recipes. Only to family, of course. Most recently, Bennett's chili sauce was discontinued, and we all scrambled to find an alternate that would do her justice. Brad and Nani had a special love of Arby's, and she never missed an opportunity to bring a handful of coupons for him. I loved candy around the house, even if it was decade-old Jordan almonds that would likely chip your tooth. And Katie was especially thankful for the potato sticks she would pull out as soon as you entered the house or apartment. Reading and games were abundant while at Nani's. We all learned to read from, what was the book? Run, Monkey, Run? Does anyone?
Pat the bunny.
No.
See Jane Run.
See Jane Run, that's it.
Aw.
Now I lost See Jane Run, and we spent hours in the living room playing Old Maid. We were often incentivized to get good grades, among other things. 17 years ago, she offered Brad $1,000 to quit biting his nails. And as you can imagine, that was the last time he ever did it.
That's a great story.
A new season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is coming out in a few months, and we all can't wait to sit down, text each other, and share more memories of Nani. We love her forever, and we are very happy she's in heaven with Papa.
Very nice, honey.
Friends, before we prepare for the rites of burial, was there any other member of the grandchildren or great-grandchildren who wanted to share anything at this time? Well, we know that these stories and so many more will be with you for many, many, many years. Friends, I want to share that anyone who wishes to make a contribution in memory of Fran, that the family has suggested you might consider the Case Western Reserve University School of Law, specifically the Jacob Hecht Scholarship Fund. And we continue now with our service of memory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, the righteous judge. Adonai Natan V'Adonai l'kach yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, and now God has taken away. Still, we bless the name of God. Vayeshov hafar al haaretz k'shahaya v'haruach teshuv el ha'elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns unto God who gave it. May the soul of Francis Kleinman be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Send comfort, God, to all who mourn, and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Friends, we have a tradition that stems from the idea that when we're born, there are loving hands to hold us and to guide us and to take us through life. The idea that when we leave this earth, our burial should not be done in the hands of strangers. And so we have this tradition of placing earth on the casket. At this time, anyone who wishes to participate in this mitzvah, in this deed, I invite you to do so. And when you return to your seats, I will ask that you please remain standing for the closing prayers. Immediately following.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. It's pretty good.
He's already got me.
That's fine.
He said, Bob, when he's in trouble, he still comes out with that first.
Thank you. And the girls beautiful. All three of them. Right from the heart. And these two are cute. Is that Charlie and Will?
Charlie and Will. Yeah.
Oh,
Here,
God,
their
so
mommy's
cute.
gonna have another baby.
Oh, beautiful. When's that coming? When's that in later? Oh, wow, you're stunning. Karen's so beautiful. Isn't it amazing how a pregnant woman can keep the outside child on top of the inside child?
Yeah, it works.
It's really amazing to me. I just don't remember. I just kept short. I guess that's where they get this situation. One said here. So that's your daughter or daughter? The one who's pregnant.
That's Bob's.
That's your
Yeah.
daughter.
That's
daughter.
That's my daughter.
That's your daughter, Mom.
He's much older one.
Oh, I know that. By 5 years. I remember that.
You don't forget anything, do you?
I remember that.
No, that's
brass.
brass. You better check on
Brass.
that. Can we see your nails, please? Can see these nails.
And she really, that is true. I never knew this. She offered me when I was.
Just make a haircut.
She offered me to get my that time, I'm $100. Of course I wouldn't do it.
It's good money back in the day, right?
Friends, I offer you the words of the El Malei Rachamim. This is the memorial prayer where we ask God to accept Fran's soul. And following the chanting of this prayer, we'll join together in the words of the Kaddish. El Malei Rachamim, shochen bamromim, amsei menucha nechona tachat chanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim utovrim kezohar harakia masirim. Et nishmat yakirenu, shahalacha le'olama began eden techei menuchata. Ana b'harachamim astirecha, v'seiter kinafecha le'olamim, v'titrod v'trorachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nechalata, v'tanuach b'shalom, al nishkava v'nomar. Amen. O merciful God who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect peace beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. And to our dear departed Fran, who has gone now to her eternal home, may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Grant that her memory inspire us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, we turn now to the words of the Kaddish, and we recite together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon, u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala, u'v'zman karib, v'yamru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'barach, v'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitroma, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shnei d'kudusha, v'rifu, le'ela, v'yinkol, v'yirchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, da'amiran, v'yalma, v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shalom Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru. Amen. We pray that God, who makes peace in a high place, will continue to send peace and comfort to you, the mourners, to Israel, and to all humankind. Amen. Friends, as you depart from this place, Bob and Gary want me to remind you that everyone is invited to join them at Yours Truly in Solon, so you can sit, have a bite to eat, and share more amazing stories about Fran. As you've come here in peace today, so may you go forth in peace. Thank you.
Thank you.